Hey everyone, and welcome back to the DC Films Podcast. This is episode 36, and here we're finally here to all talk about Justice League, to talk about Aquaman. So we finally all have a chance to see it, and now we can finally talk about it. So joining me here are some very familiar faces of each of you. Want to go around and introduce yourselves to the listeners?
I'm Al Speed, and I am Speed of the Oppressed on Tumblr.
Hi, I'm Fatma, and I'm Fatma_X on Twitter.
Hi, I'm Jean. I'm Bat Activity on Tumblr and Twitter.
I'm Danielle, and I'm a Social Justice League on Tumblr.
Okay, so can I just say, it feels like it's been so long since we've all had all been together and talked about a movie like this, and actually enjoyed it. Seriously, the last time was because we started this podcast right after Wonder Woman came out. So of course we were gushing about Wonder Woman and stuff for a while, but since then the only other movie that we built up and talked about was Justice League, and of course that turned out to be shit. But Aquaman's here, and Aquaman was an interesting situation because they released it internationally before they released it here in North America. So Fatma, RTM, you guys all saw it way before the rest of us here in the States did.
Yeah.
So it was really hard to hear you guys loving and raving about it and not seeing it yet.
I mean, I don't mind. This is a first for us, so I'm still happy that I think they'll be adopting this method for a long while.
It was such a brilliant technique, though. I can't talk enough about how smart this was, because the American public is just full of shitty followers. We're all, and what we needed was for someone else to just set the tone. We needed someone else to come in and be like, hey, this is a good movie. And then we're like, oh, someone said it was a good movie. God, maybe we should give it a shot. And that's obviously the effect that happened here, and it's a million times. It's a huge turnaround.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it benefits me. I'm in the UK. I know it's a selfish thing to say, but I'm hoping that all studios adopt this new method.
Honestly, even though even though it sucks for me personally, I want to see the movie as soon as possible, but I think this worked in its favor, because even though the critics score on Rotten Tomatoes or whatever fell a lot, word of mouth prior to that was so good, but I don't think Rotten Tomatoes really matter at the end of the day. Because if you notice, once it hit the States, it dropped big time, and then all the American critics were like, oh, this movie fucking sucks, and blah, 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 blah. When everyone's like, no, we enjoyed it, and fuck you.
Yeah, I mean, you can see the trend in... I hate referring to Rotten Tomatoes or even looking at anything on Rotten Tomatoes. I just don't think it's, something that you can actually extrapolate actual data from. It's so ridiculous that people base everything off that site. But seeing that drop, as you said, Nick, is something that was, evident to what the fans have been saying that people do love this movie or this show or whatever it is that's being reviewed. It's just that there is an agenda or some level of bias that's happening, and happening especially with American critics and not necessarily worldwide critics.
Yeah, and the same thing happened with Venom, where Venom got really low scores on Rotten Tomatoes, but yet it was able to make almost, I think, 800 million.
Oh yeah, it became a huge hit in China.
Yeah, China loved Venom.
And same thing with Aquaman too. Aquaman's dominating in China right now. And I think it'll make a lot of money here in the States, but internationally it seems to be where it's making a lot of its money. Which I think...
Yeah, it said it's heading to $1 billion already.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not sure where it stands right now. The last time I think a few days ago, it just crossed over 500 million. And I think
it's 600 million now.
It's somewhere around there now. It's making a lot. It's making a lot of money for where it is at this point in the year, and for how much competition it has. Because you have Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, you have Mary Poppins, you have Bumblebee. All I think are fair. I think that's fair competition. That's going to take away some box office from it, because you're going to have parents want to see like a superhero movie with their kids, but they don't want, like, they might be too like iffy on like the violence and stuff, so they go see Spider-Man. Or people who just want to see a blockbuster and they're like, oh, well, I'm not sure about DC, so we'll go see Bumblebee. Or like people want to see like a family movie and like, okay, Mary Poppins, you know. So like, there's this is the first Christmas in a while, or the Christmas season for movies in a while, that I feel like there's been a lot of fairly good content to choose from. Because normally this time of year, it's Star Wars, and Star Wars, for whatever reason, had their May release, and that ultimately didn't work out for them at all. So having all these studios look at this time of year and being like, oh hey, like that's actually a good time of year to be making money, because for the last 3 years, Star Wars has just dominated like every year and made over $1 billion. So of course each studio wants to cash in on that on this time period. So I think this time of year, I think worked out definitely in Aquaman's favor. Obviously, you can say that this is a summer movie, but I think it's nice to have a DC movie in this time of year. Just kind of like have almost be like a palate cleanser at the end of the year. I don't know. That's just me personally.
Yeah. I just don't think that DC should adapt it for December releases every year purely because of other releases as well. It worked this year particularly well because obviously you said there was a gap in the market in terms of Star Wars being missing. But I think the key thing that worked amazingly for DC, especially with the bias that currently surrounds DC, is the international opening first. And they could do that at any time of the year and it would still a lot better than it would usually. So, but this year, because it's a mix of both, it worked wonderfully well. And I can't wait for it to hit the $1 billion mark.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this movie has a very good chance either hitting or getting extremely close to hitting $1 billion, for sure. So we'll see as the weeks go on. And plus, I think there's still a few markets it hasn't opened in yet. Like, they still open for like another like week or two. So we'll see how it plays there.
I don't think it's opened in Japan, or at least it opens in either tomorrow or in 2 days.
Okay,
I might be wrong.
Okay, 'cause I know Japan was one of the few places left, and I think there's like 1 or 2 other countries that are fairly big markets that haven't opened yet. So we'll see how they perform there. So obviously, since we've all seen the movie, so just to preface anyone who's listening who may, most of you probably have seen the movie, but for those of you who haven't, this is going to be a heavy spoiler discussion of the film. So if you don't want to be spoiled, I suggest you check out now, come back later. After you've seen the movie, because we're not going to hold back anything as far as spoilers go. So you've been warned. So if you guys want to each go around and just talk about like what you loved about the film, maybe things you didn't like, just kind of each go around and give your own personal thoughts of what you liked about the movie.
Alright, I guess.
People say first because, we've already said our opinion, so you guys could I want to hear what you guys say.
Alright. Okay, so, I saw the movie just last night, and oh my god, man. I had no doubts that this movie was going to be good, but I didn't think it would be, as good as I thought it would actually be. Because, I don't know, there was just so much, fresh air, just this spontaneous adventure, the cinematography was on point, and I don't know, just something about this film, it hit a chord with me that I just didn't think it would. Just from the beginning, the beginning was a little slow to me, I can admit that. But when it really got going with all the Atlantis stuff, it was just amazing, man. And one thing I did love about Aquaman was how it brought, they already said they were going to do it, but I loved how it brought, specific things about, the surface world, all the stuff going on, all the stuff that we're doing to the ocean. They even mentioned my city in the movie, which I was surprised. Me and my brother watched, and we were like, "Oh, look, they mentioned my city." But it's very interesting because rarely do you have a movie where you actually end up, sort of agreeing with the villain in what they're trying to do. Because that's one thing I look for when it comes to villains sometimes. Not just them being evil just to be evil, but there being a legitimate reason as to why they're evil. And I really felt that with Orm because in the end, he was just a guy trying to save his world. You know, trying to save his environment because humans are really fucking it up. And it reminded me of Zod, of course, with him wanting to rebuild his planet. And I felt that connection with the two, and it just kind of made me enjoy the villain a little bit more. I mean, there are a few other things that I did really love about this film, like the cinematography, of course, the setup, and the feeling that it really did feel like Indiana Jones meets a whole bunch of other movies all put into this perfect combination of action, adventure, and just all that. But I can gush about it forever, though. Oh, yeah.
I mean, am I the only one who thinks that Nicole Kidman is fucking back, and that she's the star of this film, and
oh my god,
killed it, and
yeah, I did not. Like,
and that she's allowed to do this action shit at her age is just like fucking.
Oh yeah, that was. Like, I thought it was all a stunt double, but no, that was literally all her. Like, that beginning fight scene that she did, that was literally all her. I was like, what? Oh my god.
She did so incredibly fucking well. Like, and that's why, like, it was so hard not to talk about the movie when you guys hadn't seen it yet. Because the moment that... So when Arthur finally is reunited with her after she saves them from the trench... Like,
yes,
okay,
that was...
First of all, I will say, first of all, as soon as you see her pulling Mira from the water, you can see her, like, her armor or whatever, so I'm like, okay, that's Atlanta, she's back. But even,
the 150%, that was...
Yeah, no, that was a surprise to me. I didn't even know it was her until she took off the mask.
Yeah, so for me, I mean, I was still surprised they brought her back, because I was under the assumption that she was killed off, like... we weren't going to see her again, and now it's going to be end of Atlanta as a character, because in the comics, currently, I think she's dead, so, like, she doesn't really play a role in, like, in the modern-day lives of her sons. So, knowing that they brought her back was already surprising, but, like, the build-up to it, for me, like, could have been, like, they could have done more to hide her identity, because, like, again, as soon as I saw her walking, I'm like, okay, it's Atlanta. But still, but that moment alone, and I tweeted this, too, after I saw the movie, like, for anyone who knows me, like, that the scene where she reunites with Arthur was honestly one of the most emotionally powerful moments in the entire fucking movie. Like, it was just so fucking amazing. Just, I loved it.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, something. Sorry. Something I really, really appreciated about this movie, and like, it was that the way that it blended together so many of the important Aquaman storylines that occurred like across his comic run, like, you know, his story of him falling in love with Mira, him accepting his role as king, the Orm thing, his relationship with his mother, the story between his mother and his father, like all these different things are like comic threads that have been explored in his comics one by one over the years, but somehow like James Wan, like in this movie, they just weaved everything together and it works, you know. And maybe that's why this movie seems to like cross a bunch of different genres, because it's like crossing over all these different storylines at the same time, but somehow it works. It doesn't feel rushed. It doesn't feel unnatural or anything, and it's amazing. Like, I just appreciate it so much. And,
I also appreciate like, I was surprised that, you know, that Atlantia was actually alive, because like you said, she died in the comics, but what I appreciate.
No, actually, that was a comic run that I think a pretty recent comic run, probably like New 52 or something, where like she turned out to have been like this queen of this deserted island or something.
Oh,
it was very different, but she was alive.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I recall, yeah.
Yeah, but I did like that. I liked that she was alive, though. I did appreciate that, because, you know, like, too many times where it's always one of the parents dies, and usually it's either the mother or the father. But I liked the fact that Aquaman got to keep both his parents. You know, he got to keep both his parents in his life, you know, because I don't know, because, like, for most of the members of the Justice League, they either have one parent or literally no parents in Bruce's case. But for Arthur, he got to... Who? I think... Okay. Yeah. But for Arthur, he got to keep, like, both of his parents, which, I don't know, I just feel like that's kind of unique for, like, most superheroes nowadays.
I mean, to a degree that is true, but like you can't forget the fact that the loss of his mother did shape how he became as a man, and what drove him to him and Dawn. What they like, that loss that they initially thought did to a degree shape how they both became the men that they were. So I like the twist at the end where they ended up both keeping their mother, and the redemption that, I mean, Arthur didn't use that loss in an extreme way, whereas Orm did. Albeit his reasons were valid to a degree, but I feel with Orm, his redemption comes from understanding why his mother did what she did, and understanding his brother, which I'm hoping that he gets some level of some level of that in the sequel. But yeah, it's a great way to do it, and I can't wait to see how Aquaman 2, I'm assuming it'll happen, will be like the events in this movie set up.
And that's
because another thing that Jean said is the fact that how everything was present, but it's present in a way that didn't show too much, but sets up a world that you can expand on. And I know, Nick, you asked me that question, and I told you that it does. And now that everyone's seen it, do you understand where I was coming from in the way that you can set up the Black Manta story, and then you can set up a redemption arc with Orm, and then you can set up the world of Atlantis with Atlanta being back, and Mira and Arthur being together, and understanding other threats and other things like that. So it's a fantastic movie in the way that they've shaped it all.
They're really good, and that's the thing. Like, and that's to kind of go back to what we were talking about earlier with Orm. Just Orm's drive in this movie was honestly I think he was probably the most relatable DC villain that we've met so far. And in terms of like just in his personal loss and like his hate, I mean, not that you side with him for hating Arthur, but like you understand to an extent why, because in his eyes, like, Arthur's existence is the reason why his mother was killed. So in his eyes, of course, he's gonna look at Arthur and be like, well, this is your fault. Like, I have no reason to call you my brother. Like, you are the reason our mother is dead. So, like, of course, when they meet, of course, there is that hostility for like the entirety of the film, and then as soon as he sees his mom, and at the end, you see that, like, I think even he realizes now he has no reason to hate his brother. And even when, I love the moment when, like, Arthur says, when you're ready, we can talk. Like, that's so emotionally fucking powerful. Like, to have a movie end, especially when you have, like a lot of people want to compare, like, this movie to the MCU and stuff, but in, like, to briefly compare to the MCU, like, I feel like you don't get, like, moments like that with, like, Loki and Thor, like, when Loki does something terribly evil. Like, Thor is not like, okay, well, whenever you're ready, brother, let's talk. Thor is like, no, you're going away. Like, and then they don't have moments like that. Like, to me, like,
I'd like to come to Thor's defense right now, because, like, here's the problem with Thor. The problem with Thor is that he's like, it's not like, I mean, like, the difference between Thor and Arthur in this situation, I think, is that Arthur is an adult and Thor is a tiny baby who just loves everyone, like, aggressively. So, like, it's not like, Loki, when you're ready, we can talk. It's like, Loki, can we talk right now? Loki, can we work this out this minute? Loki, why are you being so mean? And it's like Arthur has, like, the presence of mind and the adulthood to be like, well, you know, Orm, you gotta work this shit out, and when you get over your garbage, come talk to me, and I'll be here. And that's a totally different approach. But, you know, just to defend Thor, like, Thor loves too aggressively and too much.
Yeah. Like,
okay. On that subject, can we, like, just fucking talk about the characters though? Like, just okay. We're talking about Orm, but also Arthur and Mera. Like, the way, like, their characters are written, and, like, holy fucking shit, like, Arthur being able to be, like, multifaceted. Like, you know, he's an adult. But he makes jokes, but also he's, like, serious, but also I'm sorry, I'm not being very eloquent here, but I hope you can understand my meaning. Like how he can be, you know, a serious heroic type, but and make jokes, but, like, you know what I mean? Especially when he's bantering with Mera. Like,
So that's
yeah.
one of the things so it goes back to having Nicole Kidman and all of these amazing actors, and like even Dolph was amazing in this movie, a lot better than what I would have thought of coming into it. So a lot of these characters were really well fleshed out and really well done by all the actors. I mean, I can't find anyone that I could fault. Volko was amazing. I really loved Volko as well. He was like the Alfred of Aquaman to a degree, but Buffy maybe. I don't know.
I just love how like throughout this movie you never feel like these characters feel like even though you know these are like otherworldly characters and that these are characters that like obviously come from a very comic booky world and obviously they're from comics, but like the Aquaman story in particular I think is really hard to adapt and make interesting and relatable for today's audience, and James Wan kicked it out of the fucking, like, he knocked it out of the fucking park. Like, he did such an amazing job with each of the characters and making them feel like real people. And that's why, like, one of my favorite parts of the movie is Arthur and Mira's relationship. It just feels like it wasn't forced, it felt organic, and like, and one of my favorite moments was when they were in Sicily and she like eats the rose, and Arthur, he doesn't like joke around or like correct or anything. He just takes a rose and eats it with her too, just so she's not like singled out. And it was like moments like that just like really made the movie for me personally. Like of course I love all the action sequences and the cinematography and stuff, but it's the little character moments like that for me just made this movie really amazing, and I love so much of this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So,
guys, what did you think of Mira's, the rooftop chase scene, and then she went into that wine shop?
Oh yeah, that was nice.
What did you think of that scene? The second time I saw the movie, I was just like readying myself to take in every single spike that she threw at those the Atlanteans, and I was just like, wow, Mira, take me.
It's true though. Oh my gosh. Like, here's the thing. I just adore Mira, and I can't praise the casting of her anymore, because something I noticed is that Amber Heard doesn't, like, in her previous movie she got comments for being a bit stiff and being a bit like unable to really sell her characters and stuff. But like, it perfectly works for her character as Mira, because having that bit of stiffness like plays so well with like Momoa's Arthur, and it like works so well, and like by the end you can just 100% believe that they're married. Like, I don't care anymore, they're married. they belong together forever.
And especially like,
I think.
Go ahead.
Go on, Nick.
No, I was gonna say, like, even in the reshot scene in Justice League, I knew Mira was gonna be an amazing fucking character. That's just how powerful like Amber Heard's performance is. Like, if she can look good in a Joss Whedon scene, then she can look good in anything, in my opinion. Like, seriously, like, she did such an amazing job of playing this really powerful character, and like, a lot of people was like, oh, well, she's a powerful woman character. No, she's a powerful character all on her own. Like, honestly, she didn't even really need Arthur, to be honest. Like, she could have done a lot of the same stuff in this movie without him. Like, granted, like, obviously I love Arthur, don't get me wrong, I love like everything he did, and I love Jason's performance and everything. But Mira was my favorite character of the movie, hands down. Like, no question about it. She was just a presence on screen, and I loved every second of her. And then, God, and again, like, just her relationship with Arthur was built up so well, and then like when they finally built up to that kiss in the final battle, and it's like all the underwater fireworks and stuff are going on, that beautiful shot, and just
they're married.
Yeah.
About the kiss, by the way, no one complains that they were kissing on the battlefield, but of course everyone complained when Superman and Lois kissed in Man of Steel.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wonderful.
Like this, And that's the thing. Yes. And that's the thing. Like, this movie for me, I've only seen it once, so like this may or may not change on a repeat viewing. As of right now, I think I love this movie as much as I love Man of Steel. Like,
Definitely.
I think it's that fucking good. Like, I went in thinking like, okay, this is gonna probably either fall between either like right above or like right below Wonder Woman. I enjoyed Wonder Woman, but I loved Aquaman so much. Like I love Wonder Woman as a film, but I think Aquaman is a better comic book film. If that makes sense. Like, because Wonder Woman does a lot for the character that I like, and like I really enjoy Gal Gadot's performance and Patty Jenkins' directing, but like it doesn't feel like a comic book film. Like it feels like Wonder Woman thrown into a war movie. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a bad thing, but it's different when you like when you have so many of the like kind of like Man of Steel and like Batman v Superman to a degree. Like, yeah, so many of these comic book panels come to life in this film that like. As a fan of the more recent Aquaman comics and stuff, it's so like emotionally satisfying and visually satisfying to see some of so much of this stuff come to life, and come to life so well too. Like Ocean Master could have been a terrible character. It could have been like looked ridiculous and Patrick Wilson fucking like knocked it out of the park with his performance. I would say he's up there with Michael Shannon and Zod, like easily. As one of the, I honestly think it's one of the best villain performances in all of comic book film, easily.
I will say though that like respect to Juan and everything, but I did miss some of the Snyderisms in this, like some of the Snyder touches. I feel like would have enhanced things. I miss the space. That's the thing I think I feel like I miss the breath that we're allowed to take and the moments we're allowed to take with these characters, and it feels like Juan's outline here is very like action beat, like right when you expect them, whereas Snyder definitely would have slowed that stuff down and given us, you know, that sort of like moment to marinate on like whatever's going on with the characters. And I did feel like that was something that I was sad wasn't there. But Juan has a lot of strengths that you know, that Snyder doesn't when it comes to, I mean, honestly, when it comes to action. I also think that I wish Juan was I hope Juan grows into a more complete romance director, because I think a lot of the romance was undercut by the directing as much as it was there on the page. I think it was beautiful on the page, but a lot of the way that it was framed in the film, I don't know. I think some of the romance was kind of undercut. Like it was sort of like afraid to go there. Like Thomas and Atlanta's story is beautiful and amazing, and it's a great romance story. But we don't mythologize them the way that we could have. You know, I wanted to see that sunrise reunion. And I wanted it to be like an overblown, ridiculous moment. And I think that, you know, in the hands of a more romance-focused director, it probably would have looked like that. And instead, it's just this little like quiet, like interlude in between other stuff. Which is fine, but I did wish that the focus had been shifted a little bit more toward the romance, especially since like Aquamera is one of the most important ships in the DC universe, and it needs that strength behind it. It needs Juan to grow into the understanding that like what their relationship is central to the plot. It's the most important thing. If you get that right, everything else falls into place.
Yeah, I agree with you with what you're saying about the Snyderisms. I think what puts like Aquaman below Man of Steel for me is just that the lack of that silence a bit in the movie that makes you contemplate, that makes you think. Like I think James Wan really shied away a little from the slightly more difficult topics of like belonging and stuff that he definitely touches on with Arthur, because that was the intention of casting Jason Momoa as Arthur, but he doesn't really explore it as much, and it's never really been explored that much.
Well, I also wonder how much of it hit the cutting room floor. Like, I wonder how much of it is editing, because there is a mandate out there from Warner Brothers to sort of like hit those action beats and make it a typical genre film and really fit into that superhero universe. And we've already heard, you know, that emotional scenes have been cut. So, I mean, like, we might be putting on Juan something that's not necessarily completely on Juan. It might be something that's an ongoing Warner Brothers problem that probably, I mean, that isn't getting addressed in a very obvious fashion.
Yeah, it could be. But I don't know, like, the movie felt like a bit of a mishmash in terms of tonally. Like, I love the mishmash of genres, but like tonally, sometimes the pacing felt a bit like not too consistent. I don't know.
I mean, it felt to me like everything moved very fast. I think that I mean, for the DCEU, incredibly fast, like much faster than any DCEU film so far. All the other ones have had like that space between things, like sort of like space where you could just like contemplate. Like even in Suicide Squad, you have that quiet moment with Harley sitting on the rain on top of that car. Those kind of moments, I think, are really, really key to us like connecting with those characters. And I felt like, and I actually remarked upon it every single time, like after the fourth time it happened, which is that every single time there's an emotional crescendo, there's an explosion right afterward.
Oh yeah, I noticed that too.
Every time something emotional happens, boom, there's an explosion. And I feel like that's a technique to keep things moving at a pace that kind of feels uncomfortable and kind of feels like rushed to me. And I think that it's a pace that a lot of moviegoers super truly love. And I think it's a pace that the genre loves. And it's a pace that executives love. So, like, it's not a bad technique. But I did wish for some space. I did wish for a couple minutes between battles, between danger. I don't need for characters to constantly be in danger because I don't really value like physical danger in a film because like it's Aquaman. Like they're not gonna kill him. Everything's fine. Like I'd rather have there be emotional stakes because emotional stakes, like, anything could happen. I feel like there's tension there. Whereas when there's physical stakes, I'm just sort of like, well, I hope no one gets hurt.
I just think it's a little unfair to actually expect James Wan to be the exact same as Zack Snyder, and I understand where you're coming from with the pace and how face, but it isn't a Snyder movie. And I mean, you've seen. I definitely think that Wan can do those moments that you're talking about that allow you for space, because you see it in The Conjuring, especially when you've got. I forgot the name of the character, when she's out on the lake in The Conjuring and she's trying to take in what's happening to this family. So he can definitely do it, but this film I feel like it required this fast pace because of how much there is that he's trying to set up without it seeming too much. I personally didn't feel like I was attacked at any point because I knew how much he had to fit in, and considering that he still managed to get this movie within 2 hours and a half is a miracle. I think there's more scenes that include the romance and all of those amazing parts, but I think the cut that we came out with in the movie is the best that James Wan can do with the restraints that he has. And like even Snyder knows that any director that comes ahead and does these movies will have a different way of approaching them, and each character has a different way of being approached. Zack Snyder did an amazing job with The Man of Steel and letting us understand and take in the stakes that he has, but think that we shouldn't really judge a movie based on what you expect from another director, if you get what I mean. But I understand where you're coming from, though, for sure.
But this isn't about Snyder necessarily. Like, I'm not talking necessarily about Snyder, because I think that Batman versus Superman had exactly the same problems. Like, when you look at Batman versus Superman, you have a very, like, tight political drama that's slow moving, that has a lot of, like, tension, that has emotional stakes. And then you have a theatrical cut that slices the shit out of those specific moments. So it's not even about like what Wan does differently from Snyder necessarily, because like you said, in The Conjuring, he shows that he has that skill in his repertoire. I'm just wondering how much he's being allowed to use that skill, and whether or not that ability to include those moments, those slow moments, was detrimental to the film. I mean, Hurt has already come out and said, like, I had this really emotional mirror moment, like right in the beginning of the film, right after I was introduced. We had this beautiful moment with Mara where she really got real with Arthur, and she was really vulnerable, and that was cut from the film entirely. And it's like, those kind of cuts concern me. Like, every time I hear about one of those cuts, I'm always thinking, like, okay, well, what's the agenda behind those cuts? Like, what is the studio doing to try and hamper, like the ability for this movie to be emotionally resonant, to have those big themes? Because I think those themes are there. That's the thing that's amazing about this movie, is that the themes slip through. Like, there's all sorts of racism in this movie. There's all sorts of environmentalism in this movie. There's all sorts of stuff about belonging, and we have a character who's completely invested in his relationship with his mother, and a father figure who's actually really, really supportive of, like, the vision of this child's mother as, like, important and vital to their family unit, and all of this stuff that's really revolutionary. And I'm wondering just how much of that was knuckled down on by Warner Brothers, because we have this weird agenda to try and turn these films into hitting genre benchmarks. Because I know that's not Wan's thing. I know that Wan loves to subvert genres. I know that he's an amazing horror director. There are parts of this film that are super, truly terrifying, in a way that I don't think I've ever seen a comic book movie dare to do. I was spine tingled in this movie, and I don't think I've ever had that experience. I've never felt like actual horror peek into the genre, which is genius. But I do want to keep vigilant for that Warner Brothers mandate, and I want to keep vigilant for the fact that, like, there are things that are hitting the cutting room floor that may have benefited this film in ways that might have been interesting.
Can I please?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Speaking of the pacing, when I was watching Aquaman for the second time, I realized that, you see, the premise for Aquaman was that it is a story about a man of two worlds, and how he feels that he doesn't belong to any of them. And we clearly see why Atlantis hates him, why this half of his heritage hates him, because he is a half-breed. But the movie doesn't establish well enough his struggles on the surface. There is just literally only one flashback when he was bullied as a kid, but I felt like the movie was missing at least a couple of flashbacks where his father reveals him his origin and explains to him that he is special because of being a son of two worlds, that he is not a freak or something like that. You know, like that flashback when Jonathan revealed Clark that he is an alien. I felt that something like that was missing from Aquaman.
I can see where you're coming from, but at the same time, I do feel like you're running extremely close to just ripping off a Man of Steel in that aspect. Like, I know what you mean. Like, I think it would have been good to have one of those moments, just in terms of developing Arthur's character more about his frustrations with the surface. I do think we probably could have used another scene or two like that, but the scene you're talking about, I think would have been a little too close to Man of Steel in my personal opinion. But overall, for me, I understand like why like certain things like may not have like ended up in the cut of the film, because I know how Warner Brothers works. So any cuts I think was probably more on their end, and like I feel like James probably did fight hard with Warner Brothers to get even like everything he has in this cut of the movie out. But obviously there are gonna be cuts, and it sucks because like one of my favorite things about the movie that isn't even in the movie that we saw like months ago or even like a year ago was the scene of Mira walking up to the bar, and the guy was like hitting on her, and then she like explodes the beer in his face. Like what was so wrong about cutting that? That would have been a hilarious moment for her, and I was looking forward to it, and then it wasn't there. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, we know that. I mean, I think that we know that Juan is really practical, and he's a practical dude who takes practical approaches, and I like that about him. I think that's the steady and reliable thing about him. I think it makes him a great fit for the DCEU because he's so no nonsense in his approach. Like he didn't once let any of the headlines or any of the trolls like bother him. He was just sort of like, wow, you guys are like unbalanced. Like what's happening? And I love that approach. I think that it instilled a lot of confidence in me, and I think that we could have expected him to be pragmatic in the face of what Warner Brothers wants, and to be able to meet them halfway. I just think it's a shame that he has to. I think it's a shame that anybody from Warner Brothers has any creative say over this cinematic universe. It doesn't make any sense to me, because I think I want to see everybody's pure vision. I would have loved to see Ayer's Suicide Squad. I would have loved to see Zack's actual Batman versus Superman. I would love to see Juan's most pure Aquaman, what he would have done given all of his freedom.
So I feel like this is an issue across all studios, and a lot of, I think with Marvel it's a given because the studio goes with whatever it wants, but with Venom, the movie still turned out to be somewhat decent in my opinion, and I know it's a very polarizing movie, but there is a level of meddling across all studios. So Venom would have been an R-rated movie, and due to studio meddling and last-minute changes and how scared they were that they weren't going to make the money, they then made the movie into something that it really wasn't set out to be. And I'm glad that it still did well despite all of that studio meddling. Even Tom Hardy was speaking about scenes that were cut, and that's a constant thing with a lot of movies. And it just comes down to what the director will prioritize in terms of how to set the world up. And I think May Artyom, there was a scene like that you were talking about, but maybe James decided that maybe this scene would be better used whilst Arthur is contemplating a decision in Atlantis in the second movie that he can use then, or the scenes that were cut could be used as flashback scenes in the next movie. I think it's just prioritizing what works best with what he can do. And I know like Lord of the Rings has 4-hour cuts, and The Watchmen has longer cuts, and I think a lot of studios don't mind releasing these post the cinematic release, but you also have to think about the fact that 2 hours and 45, 3 hours tops is what studios are willing to go with for cinematic releases, because they still want to make money and have as many showings as possible. And I'm not coming in the defense of Warner Brothers. I hate what they have done to a lot of the movies, but it's always going to be a fight, and it's something that a lot of studios need to start to address and give that creative freedom. But with this movie, considering all of these factors that play into hand, and how much work, and like James Wan tweeted a photo of him finally finishing the movie like 2 months before the release date. He was working on it till the last minute, making sure that the cut that he sent out was the best that he can with the constraints that he had. So that's where that's what I have come to terms with, and considering everything that's happened with Zack and everything that's happened with other studios as well. But I might be wrong.
And that's the thing too, is that it sucks so much that we live in an era. Honestly, and I honestly blame the MCU, because if going back like 10 years, Warner Brothers would have never told Christopher Nolan, "Oh, cut off Dark Knight by 30 minutes." You know, like that would have been insane if that would have happened back then. But because the general movie-going audience has loved the MCU so much, and they like a quote-unquote shorter film, then it's like, oh well, that's okay. We'll just do what the popular thing is, and we don't need long movies anymore. Which I think is so dumb. Like, I'm always of the mindset, like, if it's really good, the more the better. That's why, like, Batman v Superman for me was so much better with everything there that Zack intended to be there than the theatrical cut. The theatrical cut is okay. Like, I enjoy the theatrical cut, but the Ultimate Edition is, like, so pleasing in pretty much every single way it can be, for me personally and my personal enjoyment. And with Watchmen, too, like, I know there's, like, the 4-hour, like Ultimate Edition or whatever it's called. I haven't seen that one, but I've watched the director's cut, and that's, like, what, like 3 hours, too. And same thing, like, that, I feel like I got enough of what Zack wanted to have us see as the audience, and I feel satisfied as a fan. And with Suicide Squad, like, there was that there. I know is not David Ayer's movie, and he talks about it all the time. And like, yes, he keeps saying, "Oh, well, that is my movie." I think David still, like, he probably signed an NDA agreement saying he can't say that it's not his movie. Like, can't being like, well, you know, the studio came in and just forced me to shoot a movie that's not mine. He's never gonna say that. But at the same time, it sucks when studios put these mandates on these directors who, like, James Wan, I think is one of the best directors working out there today. If he's given the freedom, he can do amazing work. Like, in my opinion, he reinvigorated the horror franchise, at least for me. Like, I was kind of over horror movies until I saw Insidious. Insidious was a great original horror film. Insidious 2 I enjoyed. And then The Conjuring was a huge hit. I love that movie. And one of the reasons why I love the movie so much is because it has heart to it. It has depth to it. And you give the director the freedom to have moments that give the characters levity, give the characters a second to breathe. And in Aquaman, I love Aquaman. I love it so much, and I wish that Warner Brothers and studios in general will give the directors the chance to actually be directors and let them be artists, because that's what these films are. They're art, and when you give them restrictions, you're limiting their creativity, and you're hindering creativity in general by doing that. And I think it's so frustrating as a fan of film, as a fan of art. Like, I don't think it's something that's going to change anytime soon, but it's something that's going to always frustrate me as a movie-going fan. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think, like, if anyone has earned the benefit of the doubt, it's James freaking Wan. Like, if they're not willing to take the training wheels off with a director of that caliber, like, they're basically just saying that there's no director who could come in. I mean, maybe at some point, like, maybe if Ron Howard rolls in, like, they're gonna leave him the fuck alone. But, like, honestly, at this point, I'd be surprised, because they don't trust their talent. They don't trust the creatives working for them. And I think it's going to continue to be a problem for the genre. And I mean, the only reason it frustrates me is because it hampers the genre. There are a lot of things that are radical about this film, but I wonder how much more radical it could be given that creative freedom.
And that's the thing, is that, like, a lot of people say this is a very formulaic film. I don't think it is. Like, I think a lot of what works is a lot of what I think the genre needs, and it's a lot of what I think Marvel is afraid to do in terms of their characters. and that like you can have a romance without forcing it. You can have humor without forcing it. You can have characters and villains with depth in your film. And I think a lot of that stuff is what Warner Brothers needs to look at and be like, okay, this works. We need to let the directors do more of this. You know, because it just.
Can we talk though about how we've introduced 3 giant, major DC characters, male DC characters who are completely fixated on their mother, and how fucking amazing that is, and how everybody who hates it can go get fucked because it's the most amazing thing about the DCEU. Like, overall, there's nothing that I love as much as the fact that, I mean, the way Atlanta is treated in this movie is just genius on every level. Like from beginning to end. The way that we were introduced to her, the way that her relationship with Thomas is, the way Thomas talks about her, the way Volko talks about her, the way that Arthur talks about her, everything about his relationship. I mean, his relationship in her absence is almost stronger on screen than their actual relationship has been so far. What we've seen about his longing for her, about his yearning to have that relationship, is like the strongest thing in the film for me. Like, I'm watching it and I'm just being like, yes, like that's an emotional core. That's something that makes a character like truly relatable. I mean, it's the most important thing about Arthur to me.
Mm-hmm.
That's why, like, that scene of him when he was a teenager, and he's confronting Volko about why he's been doing all this training and stuff, and when he's asking like if his mother loves him, that's such an emotionally that scene broke me. Like, it really did. Like, the performance of the kid playing young Arthur, like, really, that moment for me really sold like just how well the story treats Atlanta in this. Because I mean, obviously up until then, we're still led to believe that Atlanta's dead and has been dead for a long time. Even then, I'm like it sucks, but like you feel like the story cares enough about Atlanta to not just be like, oh well, we're killing her off just so her sons can be upset about it. Like, it's so much more than that. Like, and it feels real, and it's stuff like that I think James Wan did so incredibly well, and was able to get performances like that out of his actors, and that really just made this movie just so personal to me. It's like I've watched stuff like that and relate to the characters on screen. You know, it's yeah.
As I told you in the last episode, that you're all gonna love first 10 minutes of this movie, because it's all about Atlanta, and her introduction is just beyond beautiful. And speaking further on Aquaman, did you guys have some sort of flashbacks to the previous DCU movies during certain scenes, like when Aquaman opens the door on the submarine to rescue those people, and I just like, damn, I had a flashback to Man of Steel immediately when Clark opens, kind of like the same.
Yes, yeah, and the slamming into the sand dunes as well. Like the moment when they slam headfirst into the sand dunes, like that was just a Man of Steel moment for me. Oh my god!
And it's funny because you compare those scenes, because last year Zach was okay. So Jason told this story, but because Zach confirmed it, that the whole oil rig and like the whale scene was Aquaman in Man of Steel. So it's funny comparing those two moments, because Aquaman had a role in both of those moments.
Yeah, I do remember those. I do remember the whale scene.
Speaking of oil rig scene, when Orm was performing his speech to Arthur about how surface destroys the ocean, and there was a hologram of a blowing up oil rig. Maybe, I think it was the same as in Man of Steel. I hope so.
That's what a lot of people said, because during that moment it brushed by on screen so quick that I wasn't able to catch it in time to really notice it. But that's what everyone else has said, that everyone thinks it's the oil rig from Man of Steel, and I think it should be, because it just makes sense.
Yeah. And when Arthur saved that little girl, I immediately had a flashback to Bruce saving that little girl at the beginning of
me too.
Yes.
Yeah. And I like how he doesn't like jump into like save her. He literally just like runs into the bell and push it out of the way.
And another moment when Mara kills two sea monsters with one spear throw, just like Arthur did in the Justice League trailer.
Oh yeah, I saw that and I was like, oh, that's from Justice League.
But
yeah,
it wasn't
I didn't notice that,
unfortunately.
And can I just say too, like, and I mentioned this in my own review, and I know you guys probably all feel the same way. So obviously, this movie only has the one reference to Justice League being that like he helped defeat Steppenwolf. That's literally it. So I love how this movie, if they really wanted to release the Snyder Cut, it can still fit perfectly in line with this movie without having to worry about like the continuity of the theatrical cut versus the continuity of the Snyder Cut. Because this movie, all it does is address that Steppenwolf was defeated, which I assume Steppenwolf was defeated in Zack's cut too.
Yeah, and if Shazam is not going to be changed, I hope. According to director, it's going to reference Man of Steel and BVS when Zachary Levi was talking about how the movie acknowledges the conflict between Superman and Batman, and if it's not going to be changed, the Snyder Cut will not interfere with Shazam as well, I hope. So there is hope Snyder Cut still.
I mean, there was a Shazam preview before my viewing of Aquaman, and I believe that the BVS Batarang is like still in the center of one of the shots. So it's really weird if they tried to sanitize that out. There's a lot of and I think weirdly, I think Shazam is going to end up being the movie that references the DCEU the most, and probably the most consequential to like the Superman franchise. Like we were talking about, like, oh, what's Clark doing, and how stupid is Orm that he's going to be like, Clark just showed up, and like an alien from the sky just showed up, and now I'm going to attack the surface world now that they're freaking protected. Like we were just talking about how idiotic that move is, and like you need to think that through, bro. But like there's no here's what Superman's doing right now. And I feel like Shazam is going to be the one movie that just sort of drops that shit in wherever it can, like just sprinkles a little bit of that everywhere, which is like about right, because Clark's a lot more consequential to Billy Batson than he is to Arthur. Arthur gets his own sphere.
Yeah.
And that's the thing too. Like even like when I think it was around Comic-Con when those images came out of Shazam I think it's Freddy's character of Freddy and Shazam in his room, where you see the Time magazine cover with the World Engine on it. You see the Batarang. You see the Superman coming back from the dead article from the Daily Planet that has the byline from Lois. So like, I do think it's gonna be funny that like like what you said, like Shazam is gonna be the movie that references Man of Steel and Batman v Superman the most, even more so than Justice League, which obviously was because of Warner Brothers, not Zack, still.
Yeah.
So yeah, so was there anything else that you guys that stood out to you that you guys wanted to talk about as far as like moments you enjoyed or surprises that you didn't see coming that you liked?
Like the Lovecraft imagery though, like the references to Lovecraft, like in the beginning of the movie, I'm not sure if you guys noticed this, but like on the table in Arthur's home there was this H.P. Lovecraft book, and then like later on in the movie there's like these endless references to like the Eldritch monster at the end, and when they're swimming down into all the sea monsters, like, holy shit, I died.
Yeah.
Like, and
I love that he
I don't know.
demystifies the Eldritch Monster, though. Like, being able to communicate with the Eldritch Monster in, like, a, like, one-to-one basis. Like, Arthur's one skill that he has over everyone else. Being able to just be like, hey, like, what's your problem?
Oh yeah, and Julie Andrews though.
I know.
Oh yeah, Julie
That's what I was
Andrews.
gonna talk about.
That's genius, and I was worried about it, and I shouldn't have been worried. It was genius, and I love that he has a big pet kaiju. That's wonderful. Just delightful. And like that's another thing is that like I actually prepared myself a lot in this film to be like sort of like, okay, well, it's Aquaman, so like you're gonna have to be patient, you're gonna have to be like sort of like, okay, well, you know, like some of this stuff is gonna be silly and you gotta be prepared for the silly and just, you know, roll with it. And it was like I saw a man riding a seahorse.
I know.
And for the first time I'm looking at it and I'm going, oh my god, there's nothing silly about this. Like, I'm watching it, and I'm like, I totally buy in. I don't even need to suspend my disbelief. I believe that man is on a seahorse, and I believe in that seahorse. I believe in that giant rideable seahorse. That is good freaking CGI. That is good special effects, and that is, like, excellent placement. Like, that part of the, like, everything about that part of the film was genius. Just off the chain genius.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and should we like get on the topic of like it being passed over for the special effects Oscar because the fuck?
Oh my
yeah.
god, for real.
Like seriously, I think so. The CGI in this movie was so fucking well done. Like, and you can say we're biased or whatever, but like this is some of the best CGI I've seen in a film in years. Like, I think the CGI in this is better than, like, a lot of the stuff in The Last Jedi. I think it's better than, like, a lot of the stuff in Infinity War, and especially Black Panther.
Yeah, so the fuck, how are those on the short list and Aquaman didn't even make it? Like, it's ridiculous.
It was so lovingly done. Like,
I mean,
that's the
yeah.
thing. It was just so, like, it was so clearly passionate and clearly, and honestly, anytime you're animating hair, I'm, like, an automatic fan. If you're doing it well, I'm freaking out. Like, I've watched that scene in the water in The Incredibles over and over and over and over again, just because, like, when they go from dry to wet hair in that film, I'm, like, just consistently, just, like, it blew my mind when it came out, and it continues to blow my mind to this day. This movie eclipsed that for me. The effects on Arthur's beard, the way that they are paying attention to the way that Mara's hair is going all the time when we're underwater. Orm's hair is freaking genius. And honestly, it was super hard to concentrate on what he was saying because I was so busy being like, what's going on with your hair, sir? It's beautiful. What's happening? Like, there's movement, but there's not movement. And he's got some sort of like ripply, like fin kind of thing happening in the back. Like, genius freaking hair. Like, oh my god. I can't talk enough about how just lovingly detailed all this special effects were.
Okay, I do have a question for Gene, though, because there is a bit of controversy within the podcast about this. Gene, what are your thoughts on Mira's hair in the movie?
Mira's hair. Okay, no, it's a fucking wig. Like, for most of it it's a fucking wig, okay? Like, I know there's some scenes, especially, like, I think early on, like, her first appearance when she meets Arthur and her hair's, like, wet, like, that looks like her real hair, it could be, right? But then on the scenes on dry land, like those that whole Indiana Jones interlude, that was a wig. Like, you can't tell me that wasn't a wig. Like, that amount of floof in the hair is just not real. And like, we know what Amber Heard's hair looks like. It just doesn't look like that. Yeah,
I mean, for sure.
But like,
I agree. Like, there's no way that she dyed her hair like cartoon pinky red. Like, there's no way that she definitely dyed her hair that color. I definitely think that we can all. I mean, can we all agree that it's a wig?
No, apparently not, because that's what this controversy is. That was the Descent.
I don't know. I don't know where the room is for Descent. Like, honestly, like I I clocked it as a wig.
But yeah,
early
I've
on.
watched like 7 seasons of Game of Thrones. I know what a wig hair looks like.
It is a wig, but like it didn't bother me because it wasn't a
Yeah, they did a
like
good job with
wasn't
it.
Lois Lane in Justice League
Oh,
shitty wig.
yeah.
No, but like you've
Our
got
bar is so low.
you've got to compare, right? Because like I
Yeah.
trusted this from the get-go with Lois Lane Justice League came out because it was horribly done, but this one was actually really well done, and the hair movement looked right. I mean, yeah, it had a lot of fluff and it was, not realistic, but it's a
Yeah, it didn't take me out of the movie. Like the same way that like the special effects didn't take me out of the movie when they were underwater. Like this one didn't either, and I'm happy about that. I don't know.
Yeah,
It's funny because I think, like, for me personally, the hair didn't bother me like at all watching the movie. Like again, like I knew it was a wig, but like it was like whatever. Like I can get over it. But to me,
I'm sorry. What bothered me more was just Mira's bodysuit most of the time.
Really?
Like it wasn't. It wasn't a bad thing. It was just like a cartoonish. But yeah.
I mean, granted, I do think her Justice League armor is better, like design wise. But I still
God,
really
can
like
you
it.
imagine if she just walked out of the freaking water in that first scene in full freaking Justice League Mara armor?
Yes.
I would have just like collapsed in the theater. I would not have been okay. Like that armor has effects on me. I'm telling you, when she showed up in Justice League, I was not calm. I was like, oh my god. Like I went full Tumblr lesbian on the in the moment. I was like, kick me in the face, spit on my neck, please.
Oh my
destroy me.
god!
Like I'm just like, can you just ruin my life just once, please? And that was like that armor has a very immediate effect on me. And I mean, like, also, like, I'm super into angry girls. I'm not gonna lie. So all of her fire in that scene was really amazing. But like the armor for sure has like an immediate effect on me. It would have been amazing if she just appeared on shore, like completely like decked out in those like with the shoulders and everything. Oh no, it would have been a lot.
Yeah. I would have died.
So on that note, I do want to talk about like the designs of the suits though, because that was something that I really paid attention to in this movie. Like, I honestly enjoyed the way each suit all came from the same place, but you can clearly tell like the significant difference of each of the suits. Like, they all didn't blend into each other as the same suit. Like, each one had its own sort of unique thing to it. Like with Worm's, all of his suits, they all have this sort of regal royalty aesthetic to it. Like, there's one where he's literally dressed in all gold, and then we get to the classic suit where it's like this just beautiful mix of purple that I love the color purple. Like, that is my favorite. That is one of my favorite colors. And when I saw Orm in like that purple fish like skin, I almost died, man. Cause it's just the way it pops. Like, both his and Aquaman's like suits, they somehow are able to pop in such like tinted colors. Like that final battle, like seeing those two colors like on the big screen, it was all I know is I gotta watch this movie again just to be able to enjoy those suits, man.
And that's something I want to ask you. So now that we've all seen the movie now, because we didn't get the chance to really talk about like the comic book suit in our previous podcast. How do you guys think Arthur's final suit and his armor looked at the end of the film?
Beautiful.
For me, I think there was an acclimation process throughout the film because I'm so attached to that realism. Because, like, I'm grounded in that DCEU feel. that I think when I first saw it in the preview, the green and gold was really hard for me to take. I'm like looking at it, and I'm just like, this is the most nervous, this is the most nervous making thing I've seen from this film so far. And I think the movie does so much to acclimate you, because like you said, Al, there's so much there's so much costume design in this movie, and it's all sort of kind of gearing you up to accept this final Aquaman costume, because we have Mera walking around being in that cartoony way, and I think that's the reason that the wig works for me. I think that's the reason that the bodysuit takes an adjustment, but you end up acclimating to it. So by the time you see Arthur in the orange and green, in that orange and green, it becomes natural to this universe. So when you're swimming around, you're sort of like, oh, this is what Atlantean garb looks like, We're not everything is going to be Kryptonian. Kryptonian has a certain feel in this universe. Atlantean gets to have a certain feel, and that feel is pretty freaking loud. And honestly, I mean, if you look at what they're surrounded with, if you look at what the animal kingdom around them looks like, it makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense for them to be we also dress ourselves in colors from the animal kingdom. Their animal kingdom, they're right next to a freaking coral reef. Their animal kingdom is a lot brighter and more vibrant than ours. There's a connection there. There's a logical line that I can follow to that Aquaman suit, and I thought that was really admirable. As far as world building, no comic book movie has done it better so far, in my opinion. World building wise, everything felt like it happened for a reason, and every choice felt eventual.
Well, so you would say so you're saying that in your opinion, this developed the world better than even Man of Steel did?
Well, I mean, in terms of developing Krypton and developing Kryptonian culture versus developing Atlantis, 110% Aquaman beats Man of Steel.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the nature of the situation, though, is that Arthur's a totally different situation because he gets to come back to his culture. His whole story is about coming back to his culture. His whole story is about discovering that culture and being a part of it again.
Whereas Clark, it's about the culture being missing, right?
Yeah, it's about loss. It's about this hollow echo of what Krypton might have been in Clark's imagination, which is so much more important because it's a totally different story. It's a different diaspora.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then that aspect, the thing that is a good point because Man of Steel, you're developing Krypton's past. Because there's a point where Krypton literally ends, where Atlantis is alive. It's a currently thriving culture, a thriving society. So I think, granted, I do think that Atlantis was developed really, really well. I wish we saw more of it, because just the amount we saw, it was just so visually pleasing, and it just felt like it just felt like such a beautiful escape, a beautiful setting to have this movie take place in, that I wish more stuff was going on in Atlantis, because we get the introduction to the city, we see obviously the gladiator fight between Arthur and Orm. But
the great thing about Orm's progression and Orm's plan is that it actually does give us the opportunity to see 4 different distinct underwater cultures, and I thought that was really, really smart. That was huge because it makes like I've said this before about the film to other people. It makes Asgard look like Disneyland. It makes it look cheap. It makes it look thin. It makes it look like, oh, well, this is Thor's neighborhood versus this is the entire freaking underwater. This is the ocean. This is the entire ocean. You get the whole ocean here. This is a world that we're developing. And I think the comparisons to Star Wars are very apt because we're actually we're kind of going to different planets. I mean, like, he really took this and he was like, well, you know, underwater is the closest thing we have to underwater that we can understand in film is space. So we go to different galaxies in this universe, and, you know, it dip our toe into these cultures. Would I have wanted more of that? Absolutely. But, like, I think that we did a lot in the time that we had.
Yeah, and another thing with Aquaman that I did like is that well, like you said, you know, it's a huge ocean, and I think that's where James Wan was able to really bring out a lot of like, I think one of the worlds that I loved the most was the trenches. And the reason for that is because, you know, in the beginning of the movie, they were saying how, you know, well, not the beginning, but how it explained how Atlantis, you know, after it sunk to the ocean, some people adapted and some people, like, regurgitated into this sort of animalistic, primal society of just, like, crazed monsters, you know. And when you see the trench monsters, it's very hard to remember that those used to be, like, you know, Atlanteans. They used to, like, have human-like appearances, but now they've become so corrupted and so monstrous that it really makes you feel like, you know, just how dangerous they really are. And I guess I'm just bringing this up out of nowhere, but I do like the sequence of where Arthur and Mira are going into the trenches, where you see only this red light in an ocean of a whole bunch of, like, sharp black creatures forming like this wave that's coming out.
That was like, I thought it was like a Lovecraft reference or something.
Yeah, but I love that there was no music to it. Like, in the moments when they were going down, it was like just utter silence, except like a few small beats from an instrument that were the only sound that you hear as Mira and Arthur were going further and further below. And I was just lost in that scene because, like, it wasn't any, like, large fanfare music that was playing or any sort of weird sound effects of monsters screaming. It was just that utter silence with just a few beats of an instrument. I just love that. I love that scene. That scene stood out the most for me.
And one thing I want to really just talk about too as well, just how well that third act brings everything together.
Oh yeah, it did.
Like, just for me, I mean, like, I there's obviously a lot I love about, like, everything leading up to that, and I think, like, there's a lot of stuff I still want to talk about still, but, like, that final act was just so well done. And just the final fight between Arthur and Orm, and, like, of course I love that the big battle and stuff going on with the kaiju and, like, all the Atlantean forces and all that stuff, and, like, the moment when Arthur emerges with the creature and he's, like, commanding all the sea creatures and stuff, that was amazing. But just, like, the emotional build up to Arthur and Orm, I think, just pays off so well in the end. And that's something that I feel like we don't get a lot of in a lot of these comic book films, and that, like, a lot of times, like, a lot of the more problematic parts of the film are in its third act, because sometimes, like, they end a little less realistically, a little less of, like, oh, well, the stakes were never really there, so now the movie's just over. We're here, like, I still feel like the stakes were there. Like, at the end of the day, I knew that Arthur wasn't gonna kill Orm, but just, like, just the battle leading up to it, and then, like, when Atlanta comes out, and just everything about that really just made the movie, for me, just one complete, cohesive, enjoyable film. Like, with Wonder Woman, I think Wonder Woman, you can tell, like, the third act is where they've changed things. Because I feel like Wonder Woman was I think Wonder Woman was definitely going to end a little darker than it did.
Gene, was that you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
speak your mind.
About Wonder Woman. Okay.
Speak your mind. That's what
Okay.
we're here for.
Sorry, carry on, Nick.
Carry on. Yes.
Okay. But yeah, so my whole point is I thought it was an amazing third act, just from the visuals to just the emotional moments, all of that. And I think it again made everything come together amazingly well. That's all I want to say.
Mhm.
So one thing I want to talk to you guys about, because we haven't brought it up, is all, so what did you guys think of Black Manta? Because we haven't talked about him like at all.
Oh my God, Black Manta. Black Manta was definitely a highlight that I was waiting for to show up, because Black Manta was probably the most interesting thing to see on the big screen, especially when it came to his costume. Because that costume could have looked so much worse than what it actually ended up being, and I was just blown away by how well it worked.
And that's the thing too. Like, I love how like his look too. Like, they had the moment where he was like trying to make his classic comic book mask, and then it like blew up or whatever. But like his look came off like so incredible. Like, it made sense in the film. Because I remember when the images and stuff first came out, I was like, okay, like, I need some time to adjust to see it in action, because right now it looks very like bubbly and very like just like very big, like a little outrageously big at first. But in the context of the film, I think he looks incredibly well, and also Yahya Abdul-Mateen really brought a lot of humanity to the role, and where he could have just been like another thug, he could have just been like an emotionless dude, but by having him like lose his father in the beginning, granted he's a criminal and he's like a bad guy, but you somewhat sympathize with him, especially you kind of start off the movie with him. And granted, like we know he comes back after after they make you think he's dead for a second. But I really like how they set him up. And like, granted, he was never going to be the main villain, but the way they set him up, I think, was done really well. And I'm really excited to see what they do. And because the actor's been hyping up the role for like years now, and I'm so happy that things are going so well for him. And I think Yahya Abdul-Mateen just did an amazing job with the role, and I can't wait to see more of him.
Yeah, that was one point that I was really happy that they did, and the fact that they didn't wait until the second movie to set Black Manta up and have his whole story set up there. You've already seen it, and this movie has set up a lot of groundwork for a lot of the characters that you are expecting from the world of Atlantis. So Black Manta, especially, we are talking spoiler free now. I'm just so used to like keeping it spoiler free. When he was going up the submarine after his father died, and you just saw that instant switch from just being a basic criminal to someone who is out there with an agenda against someone else now, because he's out there for revenge. And that switch that happened in the acting that Yahya has done with this role was just really, really amazing to see. And I particularly like focused on it in my second viewing because it was just so present, and it reminded me of the switch that you saw Anne Hathaway do as Catwoman when she was in The Dark Knight Rises. Granted, she was always villain, or an anti-hero or whatever, but that level of acting is really, really great, and I'm really excited to see what he does, especially that post-credit scene. We're in for a ride with this universe.
My favorite thing about Black Manta, especially, is that his origin story is actually a literal mistake that the hero is allowed to make. Like, it's of Aquaman being a dick, and the coolest thing is Arthur growing to the point where he like admits, like, he gets to that point, he's like, this was a mistake, this was like he's allowed to have a bad day, he's allowed to make a shitty call, and I think that we allow him that more than we would, like, other heroes I can think of. But I'm saying, like, that is something that like, owning up to that mistake is something radical, because we have all these heroes out there making huge, colossal mistakes in these franchises, and there's never really a moment of like recompense for that. There's never really a moment where they're like, yeah, like, that was a dick move, should not have done that. And I think that's huge. That's a huge a coup in terms of how we conceptualize men in the genre and their need to sort of like come around and be able to apologize for things and be able to be like, yeah, like that was a bad call. And I think it comes around again, sort of, there's an echo of it when I'll be honest, like, and I didn't want to say this before the movie came out because I felt bad the whole time, but like the "what's greater than a king" line really bothers me in the previews. Like, I thought it was just really, really super cheap, and I was just sort of like, the whole time. In context, it's fucking genius. But what it needs is that last line from Atlanta, which is that she shows up and she says, you know, a hero is for everyone. And that, like, undermines nationalism, and it undermines the whole idea of Arthur as sort of like, you know, the protector of Atlantis. We're saying, like, Arthur is the protector of the planet. That's amazing. And I think it calls back to that moment with Black Manta, where, like, he had the opportunity to protect someone for no other reason than it's the right thing to do, and he's moved beyond that. He's an actual hero now, and he has the ability to make those decisions the right way. And I think that's genius because there's actual growth in this film, and that's super important because we can't just have heroes like fully made in these films. Like, I think that there's an expectation that the hero shows up and the hero is the hero, and there's no growth and there's no change, and it's like a cartoon, and he's wearing the same shirt every single morning when he wakes up, and that's just the way, you know, it's going to be continuous from movie to movie. But like, we're seeing a continuing of this, like, DCEU having those actual character arcs and respecting the fact that characters have to change and grow. And I think in the case of Arthur, I think it was a little more subtle, but it's definitely there, and I think Black Manta is a huge part of his arc.
Yeah.
And like, I completely agree, but with what could be greater than a king line, because in the trailers and stuff, like, I just wasn't, like, I didn't hate the line, I was just bored by it. But in the moment, when it's finally said in the film, it feels earned, and again, it makes so much more sense in context. And that's the thing that sucks about a lot of the marketing and stuff when they pull lines like this from the trailers and stuff, is that sometimes out of context, the lines just feel weird, out of place. Like, why did you decide to put them here and not, you know, just like certain things just don't always work in trailers, but work so much better in the film. So that, like, for me personally, I agree. Like, that line in that moment, like, it felt so much earned, so it made so much more sense. And I do agree that, like, because that statement, like, does define him as a hero of not just Atlantis and not just the ocean, but just of the world. And that's the nice thing too about, like, this movie. Obviously, this movie is about him, but, like, does establish Aquaman as a hero of the world and not just a hero of one place. Where, like, I feel like some other superhero movies do. It's like he's not, like, the hero is in service of his local area. He's not really in service of the world itself. In a lot of this kind of stuff, you know.
Yeah, and in the DC universe, with the exception of Batman, there's really not an excuse for that, you know? Like, you have to be of the world. If you're going to be in the Justice League, you have to be a representative of the planet. And, you know, sometimes other planets. Like, you have to be for everyone. It's one of the, like, DC mandates, and I think it's what keeps the diversity in the stories strong, and it's what keeps these characters universal, and it's the reason that they have greater reach than other characters. And I think that, if nothing else, the DCEU continually is able to tap into that, is continually able to be like, here's the scope of things. Our heroes are for everyone. And our heroes are for everyone is such a strong message to ground the series in. Like, if we're going to say nothing else, that's a beautiful thing to say, especially at this moment in history.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing, too, is that, like, a lot of when you look at like things like Spider-Man and like and some of these other characters, like, you feel like outside of their main cities, like, they can't really do much. Like, and it's like, 'cause I have this conversation a lot with my little brothers, that, like, what can Spider-Man do if he's not in a major metropolitan city? He can't be, like, if he's in, like, rural town, Texas, what's he gonna do? Swing from one-story building to one-story building? like a lot of these characters work because of the environment they're created in. Outside of the environment, they don't work as well. So wasn't
that explored a bit in Homecoming when he was trying to swing in like a rural, like well, this rural, but more like a suburban area, and like he couldn't really find things to stick on to.
Yeah, and that's just my big complaint with Spider-Man in general. Is like outside of New York City or like big major cities, he can't do much, like, if anything. Unless he wants to crawl everywhere, in which case, whatever.
Well, it's a difference of scope, I think. Like, it's a difference in terms of, like, Spider-Man is super powerful, yes, but on a Marvel scale. And the Marvel scale is totally different. I think that's why it's so funny to me when everyone's like, yeah, the Hulk could fucking, like, destroy Superman, and I'm like, oh, buddy, like, I'm sorry, you're talking about two completely different universes. Like we've got Titans that are punching planets in the DC universe, and then in the Marvel universe, like, you pretty much top off at Storm, and it doesn't get much more powerful than that. Like, it doesn't, like, the scale is lower. In general, their villains are on a lower scale. They do everything, closer to the ground for a good reason, and it works, and it's fine. But it's not the way DC is ever going to approach its characters, because it doesn't make sense to approach them that way. Like, everybody is Superman or greater. I mean, Superman or lesser. So, like, Superman, or like 4 steps below Superman. But if you're any more than 5 steps below Superman, you're kind of irrelevant in the DC universe. Like, it's not like you're going to be part of big stories. You're going to be in your own little sphere. And those aren't really the stories that DC is interested in telling. They're interested in telling these giant mythological thematic stories. And that takes a different scope. It takes a different scale.
Yeah. You can't really do with the MCU what you can with the DCEU, because like I think a good example is that in the MCU it's mostly humans pretending to be gods, while in the DCEU it's gods pretending to be humans. Like, in the DCEU there are just way too many powerful, like, heroes that they all have to be in this one universe. Because I think with the DCE, what they're doing now is they're kind of making separate little pocket dimensions of each character in their own little small sphere of the universe, so that you don't really have this sort of gouge where this is as powerful as you can be, and this is as powerful as that character can be in this single universe like the MCU has. Like, in Marvel Comics lore, Thor should technically be as powerful as an actual god. But in the MCU, they kind of had to depower him so that he can fit in with, Hulk and Iron Man and all these other characters. Whereas in the DCEU, they can take it to a completely different level and have each character be as powerful as they can be in that, in that time space. With another movie, they can probably get stronger and stronger as each sequel comes out. But each movie within the DCEU has its own gouge of power. Like with Aquaman, he can be as powerful as he wants to be because it's his movie. But with Wonder Woman, she can be as powerful as she wants to be because it's her movie. I don't know if I'm making any sense, if that makes sense what I'm saying. Like, do you guys get what I mean?
No, yeah, like, the way that Marvel has established their heroes is very, very different from where DC has established their heroes. We're like, the Marvel heroes are only as powerful as Marvel wants them to be in terms of, like, okay, well, we need to establish all these other characters, so we can't have this particular character be as powerful as others because we need to make the other character stronger. Or we need to set this particular thing up. It's not about being accurate to the character and making the character important. It's about Marvel is about serving the universe, where I think DC so far is serving the character first and then fleshing out the universe. Like
Yeah.
And that's where it feels like a lot of the time for me, where like a lot of the Marvel heroes are a lot really depowered in their own like particular films, and then in like Avengers films, then it's like, oh well, here's this other character that's a lot more powerful that we need to beat, so that way there has to be some sort of struggle, right? But you can still have these characters be powerful and still create struggle for them. That's why I think a lot of people don't understand Superman as a character, because they think Superman is overpowered, and that you need to take the strength away from Superman in order to make him relatable, or to make the stories feel like they have stakes. But you don't need that. You can have emotional stakes. The stakes don't always have to be physical. It's just that's the thing I love about the DCEU, is that they make the stakes feel real, and the consequences are real. Where like in Marvel, like I hate to keep bringing this up if anyone's a Marvel fan, but I'm not saying this because I hate the MCU, but I'm just saying like it's something that I don't enjoy as much in the MCU, because the MCU, like, cause at the end of the day, you kind of know everything is gonna be okay. Like, you know.
Well, that's the thing, is that like, and this is a thing that every single time that I say like I'm not a Marvel reader, I'm not primarily a Marvel fan. A lot of things about the Marvel universe don't interest me over DC. I get a lot of people to come back at me with like, well, you know, like these, I mean, like, this is DC is way too fantastical. Marvel's, you know, real. Marvel has pathos. You know, all these characters are like really fully fleshed out and actual people, because they're flawed. And it's like, well, I think like you're talking about it in terms of scope, and when you underpower your characters, it's convenient because you don't have to have them deal with the world in a broader sense. You get to have them deal with the fight that's right in front of them, because that's all they can deal with, and that's a valid storytelling technique. But like the thing that I love about DC, or the thing that I love about DC characters, because I think DC is really screwing the pooch on shit lately, so what they're doing right now is not what's best for the characters in a broad sense. But what I love about the DC characters is that the size of these characters, the size of their powers, forces you to tell stories that are consequential and that do reflect the real life. And you cannot avoid politics. You cannot avoid the global reality. You cannot avoid the fact that there's a world outside of this character's scope of vision. You have to include all of those elements. And that, for me, is so much more important than like whether or not my favorite main character is an alcoholic or whatever. You know, like that doesn't necessarily weigh into it for me, because I want characters that like actually grapple with the shit that I see on the news every day. Like, I want to be able to like, I mean, like as an adult who like would still like to be comforted by these characters, you know, I want a Superman that addresses what we do about the caravan. You know, I want a Superman that addresses, you know, what you do about corrupt leaders, what you do about people who are suffering because of other human beings, and how we balance those responsibilities to, you know, human beings making decisions versus how we like alleviate suffering. All of those questions are a million times more important to me than like, you know, what you do when the relationship falls apart. That's not the scope of storytelling that I'm looking for. And I think that's the main difference between me and the average Marvel reader, for the most part, because I don't see Marvel readers grappling with that stuff, and I don't see them clamoring for, you know, for Captain Marvel to you know, take on a president or anything. Like, we don't see that. We don't see any of that. We see them very much like falling in line with establishment because it's convenient and because they can't really do anything about it. Well, Superman can. We know Superman can, and we have to force him to make the decision about whether or not he's going to. That's so much more interesting to me.
I think the thing with the MCU in particular is, like you both said this, was the fact that they're all revolved around Iron Man. Their main star is Iron Man, and and that's why they depower the rest of them, so that Iron Man doesn't look bad. And we all know Robert Downey Jr. and how he has to have the highest paycheck and all of that. So for them, I think their central superhero that you cannot touch and you cannot undermine and you cannot make look weak is Iron Man. I think that's another thing that I've noticed with the MCU.
Yeah, I've noticed that with the MCU too, but I think it only really started after the Avengers. Because back in Iron Man 1 and Iron Man 2, you had moments where Tony felt vulnerable, where he did feel like, you know, his life was really going down the drain. And those were moments where you really got to, you know, feel for Iron Man. You got to feel for Tony and his struggle that he's going through, despite being, you know, the stereotypical rich white man, you know, that most people that most people don't like. But with Tony, it was different because he had to go through not only the loss of everything around him, but his own life being on the line back in Iron Man 2 when he was slowly dying. But it feels like after, I think, Avengers, and I feel like after Iron Man 3, because he was dealing with, you know, the whole anxiety. But I feel after Iron Man 3, they just decided to really, like, pump up Iron Man to make him feel, like, indestructible, infallible, like there is nothing that can really stop him. And I think they've tried to make attempts to try and like weaken him, try to bring him down to, you know, that vulnerability, but it never really feels as genuine as it was, you know, before Iron Man 3. Like we see Tony getting beat up, we see him getting stabbed, we see him going through all this physical pain, but we don't really see the emotional pain. And I feel like that is where, you know, Iron Man's character has kind of fallen short for me.
I think the MCU problem is really interesting in the context of the comics, because I don't think that Marvel Comics have this problem. I don't think that Marvel Comics have the problem that DC Comics currently have, which is very much like what the MCU is doing wrong, which is that DC Comics' first instinct is to make everything about Batman. And Batman is seen as, like, infallible. And Batman is seen as, like, indestructible for, like, no good reason. And I think that the MCU is a great example of, like, why that doesn't work and why it begins to break down. But, I mean, like, it's definitely an interesting contrast between the comics because, like, I would say that, like, the difference between DC Comics and Marvel Comics is very much about scope, but the difference between the MCU and the DCEU is about making or not making huge mistakes. Like I wouldn't even mince words on this. Like I would say like things have gone awry with the MCU in ways the DCU hasn't had a chance to do so far. And mostly it's because, like, the DCU has still kept a balance. The DCU hasn't made their franchise about any one hero. They have decided that they're going to let that balance happen. They're going to let directors, you know, be the boss to a certain degree of their particular character, and everybody kind of has their own character that they can stunt for. And I love that because I think that you have an advocate in every corner for every character. Whereas in the MCU, it's one dude calling the shots, and he is clearly much more interested in Iron Man than anyone else. Mm-hmm. You know, like, what if they'd taken the Thor series and just given it to Kenneth Branagh and just let Branagh be the Thor guy? I feel like we'd have a totally different MCU if that had happened across the board. Like, you know, like just decide that the Russos are in charge of Captain America, Kenneth Branagh is in charge of Thor, like, you know, there are people who are representatives for each character. So you have sort of like a United Nations of Marvel at the table. And I hope that that's what the DCU is building. I hope that that's something that they're going to keep going. Like Juan deserves to keep this franchise. This franchise should be his. Obviously, Patty Jenkins is going to keep Wonder Woman. If we can build that, I think it can be really, really healthy for that balance that I think the MCU has lost.
And that's why I think, like, a lot of people say, like, it's, for some instances, it's not good to have a director on for several films because they lose creativity. That really is a case-by-case basis. I mean, you can tell, I mean, looking at the Dark Knight films, for example, like, Batman Begins and The Dark Knight are obviously some of the best comic book films made. But The Dark Knight Rises, however, I still think is a really good movie. You can tell creatively Christopher Nolan was checking out. Like, he didn't put his all into The Dark Knight Rises. That was more of like he was contractually obligated to finish the franchise, and that was his effort. I mean, it wasn't a bad effort. He just didn't give his all. And another look is like the amazing, or not the amazing, but the Sam Raimi Spider-Man films. Like Spider-Man 3, you could probably tell by that point Sam Raimi was like, okay, I think I kind of did everything I was creatively going to do with this franchise, and the studio wants this, and like, okay, I'll do it, fine, I guess. And obviously it shows in the final product. But I think in certain instances, yeah, you kind of have to let the director, especially if they have a cohesive vision, like Zack Snyder did, you should let them finish out that vision. So at least you have one complete cohesive story that's not tampered with by conflicting visions. I mean, if you look at Justice League, that is not obviously what Zack intended to do. And I really hope that these directors coming in and the Warner Brothers will let them have their franchises to themselves and will let them have a cohesive vision. I mean, I think Aquaman is performing well enough to keep Juan on. Obviously, Patty Jenkins is staying on for Wonder Woman. I just really hope that we really see in the future that we do see the more cohesive storylines of these characters, and that we can see a grander scheme of things with the franchises themselves that make the franchises worth watching and aren't just like, oh well, this is I don't know, this is Joss Whedon's episode of the DCEU. This is James Gunn's episode of the DCEU. Like, no, I don't want that at all. Like, I want one cohesive storyline from one vision from these directors. And I really hope that they stay on like that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not sure how long we're going to keep talking about podcasts, but I do want to each go around and, so currently, I just want to know, where does Aquaman currently stand?
Hello?
On your
You're kind of breaking up.
You're breaking up.
Am I? Hold on. How about now?
Yeah, good.
Okay. So my question for you guys is, where does Aquaman stand in your DCEU rankings?
I already made. Oh, you guys going?
To me, it's Man of Steel, BVS, Aquaman. That's top 3.
Yeah, I think I already made my list, and I think you saw it already, Nick. Where I had Justice League as number 6, obviously. Number 5 being Wonder Woman. Number 4 being Suicide Squad. And, Aquaman being 3, BVS 2, Man of Steel 1.
I think I'd say more or less the same. I think Suicide Squad and Aquaman are like almost tied. I don't know, somewhere that I haven't made up my mind on that yet. But yeah, about the same as Alex.
If I'm grading them as like a cohesive whole, like the movie overall, instead of like, snatching little beautiful nuggets of moments.
Snatching what I like about it.
Yeah, like taking little shit out, because like otherwise, like, Wonder Woman has some moments that are like the top 10 moments of my life. But like I would say it's Man of Steel, Batman vs Superman, Aquaman, Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
Me personally, I would probably go Batman v Superman, Man of Steel, and then right below is Aquaman, then Wonder Woman, Suicide Squad, and then that's it.
Justice League doesn't exist. I agree.
And then the everybody knows montage right underneath that.
Okay, can we talk? I know this is supposed to be an Aquaman discussion, but honestly, I'm like 99% sure that Joss Whedon is responsible for that everybody knows montage.
What? No, it's not. He's full of crap. I don't believe him. He's trying to take credit for it. It's garbage.
No, honestly, it's not even that though. But just like the stuff that like Zach's been talking about with Lois visiting the Superman side every day, and just the way he wanted to start the movie. I don't think that the Everybody Knows franchise. I don't think that montage is his.
No, it has to be.
Okay, but like that
stylistic thing.
Yeah, the footage with the neo-Nazi attacking that storefront.
Oh no, I'm not saying that.
And the homeless guy, all of that stuff was definitely like Watchmen-esque, meant to be montaged. I just think that the montage wasn't finished and it may have been filled in, or that Lois is inserted so that we begin the movie with Lois like we should have. Like we should have begun the movie with Lois having a quiet moment at the monument, and it segues into that. But like that was definitely set up to be a montage.
Yeah.
I mean, no way. And like the fact that he had the time to like actually like get an artist to cover this song and do all this. I mean, like, I just think that Joss didn't have the time investment nor the motivation to make that creative decision.
I'm saying it doesn't fit his style at all. Like, we know what Joss Whedon's style is, and we know that he's capable of doing some pretty good style things, but that's just not his style. That's Snyder's style. Like the choice of the track, the kind of things that he filmed, like you mentioned, Daniel, like about the store being attacked, like. That's just Snyder all over. Like, there's no... I just cannot accept...
Yeah, the use of slow motion alone. Like, come on. Like, nobody does that anymore except Snyder. Like, nobody is stuck that hard to slow motion. Like, you know... and also, like, I just think... Joss isn't sad that Superman's dead. At all. And never will be. And that moment is imbued with like this idea that Superman, you know, there's a void, and Superman has left a void in the world. And like that feeling is so resonant with Zach's understanding of Superman that like I just feel it in my bones. Like there's so like I've thought about it ever since Whedon was like, yeah, I put that in the film. I was like logicking my way out of it. Like I'm like, no, not even possible. Not remotely Joss. Like I know the man. Like I've watched everything that Joss Whedon has ever made. That's not true. I didn't watch that thing. I didn't watch the weirdo In Your Eyes or whatever shit because I was really over him by then. But like, I don't know. That montage is not in his repertoire. I just don't think it is.
I don't know. I think the only reason why I even say sorry to interrupt. I just want to say this real quick. The only reason why I say that is just based on what Zach was talking about. Like maybe there was a montage planned, but I'm not. Right now, I'm just not convinced. I'm not 100% convinced it was Zach anymore. I don't. I believe that all the shots in the montage are 100% Zach. But it's the montage itself and the song that I'm a little just. I don't know anymore. I honestly don't. Because the way that Zach's been talking about it, Zach has never once mentioned the montage. He talked a lot about like the opening stuff with Lois. I mean, great. He could have done the montage. He easily could have, but it's just I don't know. I'm just not 100% convinced anymore.
Yeah, I think.
Okay, yeah, I can understand where you're coming from. Like maybe if I think about it, like it could, like the music sounds like Zach, the shots are Zach, but maybe like the editing of it, of like the positioning of it as a montage might not have been like. I can see those scenes being intended to be like in between shots.
I'm so hung up on it that like if I meet him, I'm gonna be the asshole who's like, hey, one question about Justice League, so sorry. Please settle this for me. It's
Nick, are you going to Comic-Con next year?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, come on, so take your chance.
Be like, Zach, I hate everyone who's ever asked you a question about Justice League, for the record. But about Justice League.
No, I would just go up to Joss and be like, hey, asshole. First of all, I have many questions.
You deserve to hear about Justice League, you dick.
Honestly, I was so close to doing it at Comic-Con this past year. I was so close. But then I'm just like, you know what? No, I'm not. But if he's there again this year, I might say something.
I'm so Midwestern, I would probably just walk by him with like the judgment look. Like I would just cruise by like, fuck you in my eyes. That's all I would do.
So just FYI, if anyone's at Comic-Con this year, if Joss Whedon is there, and after Comic-Con you see a headline of angry DCEU fan harasses Joss Whedon, you'll know where it came from.
We'll be so proud. We'll be so proud.
But yeah, fuck Joss Whedon. I just gotta put that out there for those of you who don't know.
But before that, I just wanted to say one thing about the sequence. But yeah, I do agree. I think Joss picked out the music, but the sequence that we saw was all Zach, and for all we know, it probably wasn't, the way that it was intended. Maybe it was a sequence of, Lois just walking through Metropolis, seeing all of this stuff that's going on all around her. And the music just happened to have been picked out, and all of Lois's, reactions to the stuff was taken out because, I guess screw Lois Lane, apparently, at Joss.
I mean, absolutely, that's his attitude. Screw Lois Lane to the moon. We're not mystified about how much Joss hates Lois.
I also think if in Snyder Cut the introduction to the movie was meant to be with a licensed score, not a licensed track. Most likely, Junkie XL was supposed to compose maybe a Lois Lane theme, if you will, for this montage, but unfortunately, it never happened.
Well, here's my thing though. That if I feel like maybe Zach did intend to use "Everybody Knows," but I think it might have been intended to be used the original song by Leonard Cohen. Because he's used a Leonard Cohen song in Watchmen before, so I wouldn't have I could have sworn.
I think that's the question that can solve this is who actually commissioned the artist, who actually commissioned this this cover, and as soon as we figure out that, then I think it sort of falls into place who was responsible. I just would be super shocked it was Joss. First of all, because of the very limited amount of time he had. They basically just had Danny Elfman come in and just sort of wave his hands a couple times on this score. So much of it was half-assed because they had absolutely no time to work. I'm just saying, it takes time to commission, someone to do a cover. It takes time to license that. It takes time to figure out where that goes in the movie. I also don't think he had the time investment to make that happen. If it had been the original Leonard Cohen track, I might have actually thought, it doesn't take very long to make a phone call to those people and just be like, hey, can we use this? But there was so much more time and effort put into it that it seems really unlikely to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I imagine we'll find out eventually. Someone's gonna ask Zach about the song at some point. I know they are. It's the fandom. That's what they do. They just ask Zach every day. But yes, we'll see what happens. But back to Aquaman. One thing I want to bring up too, and I brought this up in my own review and stuff, because this is the same composer that did Wonder Woman. I think that the score for Aquaman is way better than the score for Wonder Woman. It feels like, Because to me, like, Wonder Woman, like, other than the theme established by Hans, that the theme for the stuff in Wonder Woman kind of felt kind of like generic superhero stuff to me. Like the more I think about it, whereas Aquaman, like, you feel the villain themes, you feel Arthur's theme, you feel the emotional themes. Like, there's so much more there in this film, like, theme wise than Wonder Woman. So to me, I love the score, and anyone who knows me knows I'm a huge score junkie anyway. But I love the Aquaman score. I just want to put that out there.
I don't know. Okay, I didn't think there was a very clear theme for the characters established. Like, there were definitely a few themes. There was an Arthur and Mira theme, like the one that she played on the recorder. But, like, there weren't such very clear established character themes, which is something, like, I love. But yeah, I think there were a few pretty notable music moments, and like the way Al was speaking about, you know, them swimming down into the deep, the use of sound there was amazing. I don't know, like it did a good job, and I think it's more memorable than the Wonder Woman soundtrack. But I don't know about, you know, it being that amazing.
I think the most memorable track that I remember from Aquaman was definitely Black Manta's theme, if I'm being honest. Because it had that, like, I don't know how you describe it, but it's like you hear it and you can recognize that it's Black Manta's because it's got that heavy moment in the music where there's like this bass line. I don't know if that's the best way to describe it.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I noticed that it recurred for ARM as well. Like the ARM themes, both villain themes sounded really similar, and to the point that I couldn't really differentiate if they were unique or not.
Yeah.
Like, they weren't really notable enough for me to like take notice of it until like the second round when I was paying attention. Whereas, you know, like, if you see in Batman v Superman or Man of Steel, like, you hear the theme and it's, like, jumping out at you, and you're like, yes, I remember this, I'm gonna hold on to this for the rest of my life, I'm gonna play it until I'm dead. You know?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's because that was Hans Zimmer, and Hans Zimmer's pretty good at,
Hans
like,
Zimmer's a fucking miracle.
I know.
But, yeah.
Thank God he's coming back for Wonder Woman 84.
I know. We're actually gonna have
fucking
a memorable time. But real quick, so Fatma actually didn't give a chance to get her ranking. So Fatma, if you want to go ahead and give your ranking of the films, you can go ahead.
Mine would Batman vs Superman, and then joint second place is Aquaman. They both.
Fatma, I can't hear you. Sorry.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I mean, now we can. Just now we can. Yeah.
Yeah. There's like background noise. It sounds like there's like clanking and like other stuff in the background.
I'm sorry. I think the clanking's me. I'm making cookie dough.
Gene. Just kidding.
I'm sorry. I would share.
But Fatma, go ahead. You said Batman v Superman, and then sorry.
So the first one's Batman vs Superman, and then in the second place they come joint together as Man of Steel and Aquaman. And then I found more enjoyment out of Suicide Squad, and then and then whatever the other thing was.
Okay, guys. Minor side note about Justice League is that the whole Batman v Superman thing. It's like I just started fucking studying law, right? And you know, if you put V, if you write it like something V something, right? The way you're supposed to say it is B. There's like Batman and Superman, which is fucking fantastic. Okay, anyway. Sorry.
Well, it's funny because I remember like when Batman, when they first announced the title, like I remember being very intrigued because I'm like, okay, that's different. But then everyone's like, oh no, that's like how like a court case would look. It's the one who's pursuing the case is first, and then the one who kind of has to be like in defense of is the other person. So of course, Batman being the one having the problem with Superman,
And then Superman having to defend himself.
Like it's like the accused versus the defendant, and then not accused. Like it's the defendant versus the plaintiff. Like fucking fantastic. Yeah, but like anyway, the naming is fantastic. I love Zack Snyder. I will worship him like forever.
Yeah, honestly, I miss Zack so much. I know he's still like an executive producer on these films, which basically means he's just there in name only. He doesn't have much say in the universe anymore, which sucks. I mean, I saw it coming, so it is what it is. But it's just these films are gonna miss something with him not being there. Like like I said earlier, I do want these directors to have their own visions for these characters and have those visions be carried out. But because Zack started this universe and because he got treated so terribly, I just want closure for him. Like to at least have like one final go, or at least like have the Snyder Cut be released or whatever, just to kind of give him the chance to finally just kind of close his book on the franchise. So at least he can have closure, we as fans can have closure, and then we can move on. But because we don't have that closure, I'm still going to be forever bitter about how Warner Brothers treated him and how much I miss him.
Same.
So, I think with that being said, so if you guys want to go around and kind of like briefly like sum up your thoughts on Aquaman and like kind of like overall and like what you thought of it.
It was stunning, entertaining, breathtaking, visually beautiful, and just a very engaging film. I loved it very much for what it is. I have some thoughts what I would have added to the film to make it better for me personally, but I still enjoy for what it is.
I mean, I think personally I found that this like a big, endearing, gorgeous mishmash of genres. It's a bit of a mess, but like I love it, and I think that it's something that everyone will like. It's not something that like it takes a lot. It doesn't take too much effort to love it, and it doesn't have any of the things that were like that makes us hesitate about it. So like all around, I really love this movie, and I hope people love it too, and I hope those stupid reviewers will shut up. Okay, next person.
All the pros that I have for it is that it just feels different. It feels unique compared to like the other DCEU movies. Like you can't look at Aquaman and compare it to Wonder Woman or Man of Steel because it's in a whole different setting. And I like that the DCEU seems to be aiming towards doing it like the comics, where each character has their own unique set of rules in their universe that makes them different from the others. Like, the only con that I have with this film is that the humor sometimes hit, and then sometimes it just felt like it was just trying too hard. But other than that, I really enjoyed Aquaman, and me and my family are going to see it again in IMAX.
I think like the only thing that threw me off, besides some bad jokes, but at least it was just a couple that I didn't like. It's that scientist and the fact that people thought that he is crazy, implying that Atlantis is real. I mean, Earth survived 2 alien invasions and Doomsday. Why Atlantis is out of possibility?
Yeah, I did find that weird.
But he did say it. People were like, you've just left in 2 alien attacks. He was trying to say that to
I guess it was just the whole fact of like, since aliens are like, it's one of those things of science versus mythology where people will more so believe in alien invasion, coming to Earth as opposed to a lost city underwater.
Oh yeah, especially considering that humans most probably think that they explored everything on Earth, and life coming from space is more believable than something that was right under their nose. So
Yeah.
That it was mentioned in the TV briefly, and it makes sense.
Oh, and that newspaper at the end in the post-credit scene, it was from Coast City, if you notice, the city of Hal Jordan. It was a very nice Easter egg.
Ooh, nice.
Danielle, you have a final say. I don't want to say anything for everyone else.
I've given my review a couple times now. I'll sum up my thoughts. I loved Aquaman so much. I still need to see it again. I loved so much of it that for me, I get maybe like a couple of things didn't land for me perfectly. But that's fine. Like, I'm not expecting the film to be perfect. But as far as like enjoyment goes, where it stands in the DCEU, as in the world building and the characters and just the emotions and the themes and just everything about this movie, pretty much, just to me is like a perfect movie going experience for me, and that's really all I can really ask for. I love this movie from start to finish. I love Jason Momoa. I love James Wan directing. I absolutely loved Amber Heard as Mira, Patrick Wilson as Ocean Master. I loved pretty much everything in this movie. I can't wait to see it again. I hopefully I'm able to see it in IMAX soon. Right now it is really hard to go out and see the movies because of my 8.5-month pregnant wife. We can't really get out much, but hopefully we can get out at least one more time before the baby comes. About a month left, so it's exciting. All right, so with that being said, if each of you guys want to go around and tell everyone where they can find you online.
I'm Al Speed. You can find me Speed of the Oppressed on Tumblr or Al Speed on Instagram.
My name is Artyom, and you can find me as Greg on Law on Tumblr and on Twitter.
I'm Jean, and you can find me as Badjectivity on Tumblr and Twitter.
And Fatma, where can we find you?
Fatma_F at Twitter.
I'm Danielle, and I'm back for a second, and I am a Social Justice League on Tumblr.
Alright, so thank you guys for doing this with me today. It's nice to actually kind of get everyone together for once. I know it's been a little while, but I really had fun today, so I hope you guys did too, and thank you guys so much. And for everyone listening, thank you so much. I know this episode was a little all over the place at times, but I still had a lot of fun. I hope you guys had fun too listening. If you guys like this podcast, definitely share it. Give us a thumbs up here on YouTube. Share it on social media, whatever. Let people know who are DCEU fans or fans of these films in general or of superhero films. We love to talk about these films. Obviously, granted, we're called the DC Films Podcast. So if you guys like what you see here, hit subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you so much for listening, and until next time, have a good one.